in Canada is you have to understand the treaty-making process. Now, in Treaty 8, which is this part of the country, we signed what we considered a peace treaty to allow the gold miners to go up to the Yukon Gold Rush in 1899. We allowed the white non-natives the use of land to the depth of one hand, which is 1/6 inches. They somehow took that and said, this is our land, and you guys are confined to reserves now. For the last 20 years, we've been taking them to court and saying, in order to develop native land, you have to have some native participation. And the courts are finally starting to recognize that natives do have rights. I guess we're not going to stop all the development because we need the resources. But what we want to try and do is control some of it. We don't need 15, 20 Syncrudes up here within the next 4 or 5 years. We can space them out over 20 years. Why does everything have to be done now? Oil was in the ground for thousands of years. It can stay there, as far as I'm concerned, another 1,000. We're able to intervene on these oil companies when they ask for a license to produce. We're allowed to intervene. We go and tell them our concerns. They say it's nice to hear your concerns, but we're sorry, we're going to develop it anyway. But each time we go to a court process, what we're doing is we're leaving a paper trail. The next time we go to court, we've got more ammunition. That's the one thing we learned quick was how to fight their battles. Pre-1960, the majority of the work up here was done by Native people. Whether they were captains, pilots, engineers working on the boats, fishermen. What's happened is these so-called white people come in, they keep wanting more and more qualifications. They keep saying, you can't do this, you can't do that because you don't have this piece of paper or you don't have that piece of paper. There's no such thing as royalties from the oils. You have to either earn your money or you don't get any. Those that were able to had to get money out of their own pocket. Some of those that you see are getting money from the band. But you can see which pigs are being treated more equal than others as you're driving around the reserve. That one fourplex I showed you is $498,000 worth of renovations they have. I can replace that whole building for less than $200,000. But they robbed Peter to pay Paul. Unfortunately, Paul's broke most of the time. So is Peter, too. When we talk about pollution, we got to look at what I call our major arteries in our heart, our land. We look at the Elk River, they now call the Athabasca River. All the shit's flowing north. The people in Fort McMurray, the majority of them walk around daily, and all they can smell is carbons in the air, gas. They call it the smell of money. They can't eat the fish, they can't eat the animals around there, they can't pick the berries around there because they don't know what's coming out of the sky. We went up to what we call the Amico site. In the 50s, the government started the SAGD operation, steam injection. And they had a blowout at what we call halfway camp, and they covered about 100 acres with oil, just dripping the trees. So they shut it down and they moved it on a reserve, and they ran it there for the next 20 years. The minute they were going to go into production, the band wanted more money, the operation, and moved it across the railroad 3 miles away to what you see as a Long Lake project now. If you looked at that land, there's nothing growing on it, no trees or nothing. They went in there about 10, 15 years ago and they planted some jack pine. And these trees are not meant for this country. If they'd have went in and planted aspen and spruce, they'd have had maybe more growth on that land. But that land is nothing, as you've seen, nothing really grows on it. Bit of grass. When you start to get in amongst First Nations and you start to talk to them, you'll first thing you notice is they laugh a lot. They kid each other. They're always making jokes. There's a lot of laughing. There's no use to cry anymore because time to cry it when you're by yourself. But one of the things that's happening with the young people is a lot of them are starting to get frustrated, and they're looking for an avenue where they can express their concern, such as roadblocks or pipeline disruptions or stuff like that. They feel a need to rebel against what's happening. We try and control them. It's going to be their choice. We're going to need some sort of a rebellion in order to change some of the things.